figure out the platform, find the right personality for that, find the right person who wants to do it, that's engaging and interesting and funny, find the right personality, the right person, and give them the latitude, let go of the rein and let them run with it.
The Industrial Growth Institute podcast connects you with the big thinkers, makers, and subject matter experts across all aspects of an integrated B2B industrial revenue growth function. From strategy, board oversight and transactions, through all the phases of manufacturing marketing, the complexities of industrial sales, and the nuances of marketing and sales technology and customer experience, I speak with guests who bring insights, innovative perspectives, best practices, and twists on traditional approaches. Each episode explores high-level thinking and in-the-weeds actionable tactics. If you enjoyed these discussions, then please help me out by liking and sharing the podcast, and especially by leaving a comment and giving a review. So with no further ado, let's jump into this episode. Hi, I'm Ed Marsh, host of the Industrial Growth Institute podcast. Each episode of this podcast gives me a chance to talk with an expert who I find has really cracked the code of some aspect of complex sales, digital marketing, and revenue growth. And today is no exception. Today, I'm so excited to talk with Jeff Cross. Jeff is the media director of ISSA, the Industrial Cleaning Trade Association, with flagship media brands that include print publications CleanFacts, Cleaning and Maintenance Management, and ISSA Today. Those are the magazines. And then all of the related digital publications and multimedia products that go with those. He's the host of several video broadcast programs, including Straight Talk and Take 5 with CleanFacts. He's the previous owner of a successful cleaning and restoration firm. And he also works as a trainer and consultant for business owners, managers, frontline technicians, and he's an IICRC approved instructor. So he's owned a business. He's walked the talk. He knows what he's talking about. And he's going to have great insights for us around content, because I've come to know Jeff really as a content creation machine. So welcome, Jeff, and thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Ed. Pleasure to be here.
So let's start with, I'm going to screw this up. You're joining me today from Pascagoula, Ohio.
Go back to the first one.
Pascagoula.
That's it.
Yeah. All right. So now I sound like a native. Orient us. Tell us, where is that?
So Pascagoula is on you could say the east side of Columbus.
Okay.
So about 18 miles from downtown. Yep. And so when people ask me where I'm from, I say Columbus. It's just a little bit easier. Yeah. Pascagoula, I think it's got some Indian heritage to it, but Columbus, Ohio, 1 million people. That's basically where I'm from.
And you from there originally?
No, I've been here since about 2008. Lived all over the country, born in California. I've lived in Arkansas, Wyoming, New York, down to Mexico for a while, and then back to Ohio. So this is our second time in Ohio. Raised our kids here. All of our family's kind of close by. So this is home.
That's interesting. So you've been a bit of a nomad in where you've lived, and I know your career that I'm going to ask you about next has kind of taken a journey that's been similar to that. So back up and tell us about your career and how you got started in this journey that you've taken.
So you want the long version?
Yeah, absolutely. Give us all the details. It's going to help us understand the rest of the story.
Okay. So going back to when I was a teenager, probably 14 or 15 years of age, I wanted to be a famous journalist. I'd read all of the President's Men, the Woodward and Bernstein story about the Watergate scandal, and it inspired me. And, being a kid, you think, I want to do that. I want to be that cool reporter and get the big story, investigate. So as a young person, you want to be all kinds of things, but that was my focus. So that's what I did. I didn't really do sports in school. I was kind of a nerd in school. I worked for a newspaper. I ran the school newspaper. The school yearbook. I was the editor-in-chief, whatever you want to call it. And I worked for the local newspaper, which was a daily, about 20,000 print. And they taught me everything about the business, publishing, journalism, reporting. And that was my vision to do that. So I did that for several years. Got married, had some kids. And I don't know if you know this, Ed, but a journalist doesn't make much money, at least at the start. We're talking poverty level, and that's okay when you're a single guy. But when you have a family, you got to think, well, what am I going to do? Right. So I made the hard decision. I gave up my dream, and a friend of mine was in the cleaning and restoration industry, and he was doing very well. So I worked with him a bit, and eventually I decided, well, I'm going to do this myself. So I bought the equipment, took the training, did everything to do it right. And I got into this industry, the cleaning and restoration industry. And I did that for probably 10 years, did pretty good with it. Ups and downs, few speed bumps here and there.
Were you selling mostly B2B or B2C or what?
It was both. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
I focused mainly on residential cleaning, but then business, it was a mix.
Mm-hmm.
Raised the family, but then I got the itch again to do something with writing. So I started a column. This was kind of early internet, forums were kind of becoming popular. So Clean Facts, which is one of the brands that I manage now, had a forum, and another cleaner and myself created these make-believe two cleaning ladies, and we created a comedy column, and we would go back and forth. We'd write this thing, and we'd put it on the forum, and people loved it. They would read it. Some would hate it, but people generally liked it. And it was good. It was good stuff. We were funny, but it was just forum posts. Well, John Downey, who owned Clean Facts, the editor of Clean Facts, he sold it, but he was still running it, noticed it and said, "Hey, I don't know who you people are, but I'd like you to write for the magazine." So from that moment on, I started to write for Clean Facts as a regular columnist.
And so that was why you were still running your cleaning business.
Yes, I was doing both.
Okay.
I was happy with my cleaning business. But I started to get that itch to do some writing, to do more creativity. So a few years go by, I'm doing this column with this fellow down in Missouri. And we did this. And eventually I decided I want to do something different. So I sold my company, and I had some time where I could figure out what I wanted to do. But I sent an email to the editor of Clean Facts, not John Downey, but a different editor at this time. And I said, "Hey, I have more time. Can I do more writing?" And he said, "Hey, Jeff, we need an editor." I said, "You do?" And they said yes. And so they flew me out to New York, and we talked. And from then on, I was the editor of Clean Facts. Started as senior editor. All those old skills, those things I'd done in the past with journalism, came back. It was just like, it was easy. But the benefit with Clean Facts was they needed an editor, someone who could write and be on time with deadlines,
right,
but also someone that knew the lingo, the industry. So that's the match. That's how I came to be where I'm at now. So from there, Clean Facts, I stayed with them. I'm still with them. Got sold to another company, and then another company. ISSA now owns Clean Facts along with two other media brands. But I just stayed with Clean Facts, and then I took on another magazine back in New York called Cleaning and Maintenance Management Magazine. I was a senior editor of that as well. Well, here I am again, back with that brand at ISSA, and now it's all about digital, videos, print, webinars. Back then it was just a magazine.
Right. And
how easy, when I look back at that, how easy it was to run a magazine, and people that understand publishing probably get it. It's just so easy to focus on that. But now it's 3 magazines, it's webinars. We have a webinar next month we just had put together yesterday. Videos. Everything that we do today is busy, but it's enjoyable.
So how big a team are you running now?
So we have a team of 4 editors. We have a couple designers, and we use some freelancers as well.
And does everybody cover all of these different titles, or are you siloed?
So I mainly manage 2 brands, ISSA Today and Clean Facts, as far as the brand planning and overseeing it. Then I have support to get the work done. We do have one dedicated editor for CMM magazine, but we just hired another editor who's coming on April 1st, no fools, April 1st to help with us. But we do work across brands. Yeah, it's not like you're tunnel vision working on just one. If I need help with something, then we will help each other and get the job done. So we have a very lean team, but we get a lot done, and we're proud of that.
Describe to me your editorial ethos, if you will. I mean, what's kind of the guiding philosophy about the kind of content, the tone, the way it speaks to the audience? How would you describe that?
So we listen to our readers, and that's how we come up with our ideas and our content. I just had a meeting before we got on here with a microbiologist who said he'd like to write for one of our brands. And so we got on a meeting and he likes, what do you want me to write about? And I said, I don't know. You're the expert. What are you hearing in the industry? What pain points do your customers or those that you work with have? That's what I want to hear about. And so we take those ideas and then we craft solutions to those. We think of every article as having a challenge and a solution. So when we think of our planning for our media brands, it's not about, what topic should we run? It's about what is hurting the industry. What does the industry need to know about? Also, I look on social media. So I'm scouring LinkedIn and Facebook, Twitter, not so much, or X, but just looking at those conversations, what people are saying, and craft those ideas. So, I think, Ed, we might have met on social media, or you and me. I don't know, but that's...
Actually, I was going to ask you later on about what you consider as an editor, what you look for in a guest contributor or a guest for some of your shows, and how people reach you. I think that I just cold called you. I found you were a prolific content creator, and I said, here's somebody I'd love to talk to and learn from if there's no application for me to contribute. So
we look for people who are you might call them Switzerland. They're non-biased, they're non-promotional, like you. I know you have your own company, your own agenda, but every time you and I do a video, I don't worry about what you're going to say because I know you. And that's what I look for. People who want to help an industry, who want to provide a message that consumers want, those who consume content want. Because, we know when we're being pitched. We know when we're being sold. And the best way to promote a company is to provide solid editorial content, guidance, consultation, whether it's through print magazine, website, or video. So we look for experts. We look for those that really want to help, who can also communicate. And obviously meeting a deadline is a good idea too. But main thing, what can they share with the industry that the industry wants to hear that will solve their challenges?
And obviously, I don't come from the commercial cleaning industry, so you've figured out a way to incorporate a variety of voices into your publications.
There are many who write for us that may not be part of the industry, but it's business. So you think about a solid business plan. You and I talk about sales, and you do marketing, all these things that you're an expert in. You could apply that, I imagine, to many different industries. So cleaning and restoration, facility management, from small companies to universities.
Right.
They all need to run their organizations, and you have a voice that will help them do that. So that's what I look for.
Got it. You touched on ISSA, and I made the mistake one time of calling it ISSA, and you very gently said, no, it's ISSA. Tell us about ISSA.
So ISSA used to be the International Sanitary Supply Association. That was its full name. But if you go back, we're now 101 years old.
Wow.
101 years old. You go back to its origins. It started small and it's grown since then. So eventually we just became ISSA because we're more than sanitary.
Mm-hmm.
We cover building service contracting, facilities, healthcare, hospitality, everything from the small residential cleaners to the biggest hospitals in the world are our members. So ISSA is simply that, the Worldwide Cleaning Industry Association, not ISSA. Nope, not ISSA. But that's a common mistake. That's what we do, right? You see something, you want to phonetically use the word.
Yeah. Sure, absolutely. So coming from that cleaning perspective, most of the audience here is industrial manufacturing. And here's an opportunity then for you to kind of pitch them. What would you say is most misunderstood about industrial cleaning and restoration in that industrial space? And is there a place for them in ISSA? Is that an organization they should be looking at?
I think so. And I'm not a membership expert, nor do I know that industry you're speaking of. But you have to think about what cleaning and facility management is. It holds the building together. So no matter what, if there's a structure, then ISSA should be part of that. our members take care of those buildings, whether it's running the control systems, maybe it could be the HVAC system. We have members that do that. But usually it's your traditional, we're going to keep it clean, we're going to keep it running, we're going to keep it in good shape. And that's the key, because without that, what do you have? You have a structure that's going to come apart. So everything that our members do, we think about COVID, cleaning was essential. We kept everything going. Without cleaning, without disinfecting, and cleaning is so much more than just sweeping the floor or wiping a surface. So much more. Just like every industry, someone looking from the outside in might say, oh, it's so simple, but it's not. It's complex. And that's what we provide.
And you all also provide a lot of certifications and training, right? So it's not just looks clean, smells clean, feels clean, but there's an actual definition of what is clean versus what isn't. And you train people and run courses and offer certifications so that they're actually experts on that.
We have an entire huge division on education that does all that. So no matter what part of the industry you're in, we have some training for you for that, or some publications or guidebooks to help with that. But yeah, it's big. It's a huge industry that touches everything out there.
That's fascinating. It's very horizontal. Aside from being married to a German lady, so there's a very strong ethos of cleanliness in our house. I remember also when I got out of the Army, I worked for a company called Cintas that at the time was uniforms, and now it's much broader than that. But one of the facts that they kind of trained us on right out of the gate was that dirty restrooms and dirty break rooms were one of the most consistent precipitating causes of unionization movements. I don't know if that's still the case. The world has changed a lot, but
it has.
That struck me as quite a bit, that it's not just, being neat and tidy and proper, but it's got a big impact on morale and on operations and everything else.
Absolutely. And Cintas is one of our member companies, important member as well. But yeah, it's a clean place, a clean home, a clean office, a clean factory is so much better for the morale than the opposite. And that's what we look at first, right? When you go into a building, you walk in, you look at the floor, you go into the bathroom. Unfortunately, so many times we're like, ooh, don't want to touch that.
But, or even before you get inside, is there trash on the ground in the parking lot? Mm-hmm. I mean, it just forms such an impression for sure.
It does.
Now,
first impressions.
Absolutely. So back to content then. Your media brands include large video and podcast and broadcast elements. You mentioned it was easy when you did a monthly print magazine, but what brought you through this journey? Obviously, you transitioned some to digital and then more and more toward video and audio format. So tell me about that transition.
So going back to my beginning with Clean Facts, 2003. Yeah, it was all print, but that was when the web was coming along. We had a website, we had a forum, and that supported the magazine. We had a 100-page magazine back then.
Wow.
But as time goes on, I'm glad to say that we kept up with the transition. As print pages started to dwindle and you saw newspapers going out of business, magazines, I think Sports Illustrated may be in jeopardy. Who would have thought?
Exactly.
Brands like that.
Right.
So as print started to go aside or go down, and not because of lack of interest in the brand, it's the reader habit.
Mm-hmm.
So as readers wanted more information from their phone, from their iPad, their computer, we moved with it. So, we know what our readers want. We can track who's doing what. And on the website, we can see who's using their computer, who's looking on their phone and all that. So we just transitioned as things went. So now we are pretty even when it comes to digital and print publishing. In fact, I know we do more digital publishing than print, but print is still in demand. It's interesting that our core audience still wants print. It's in demand. They're healthy, but huge audience wants digital. So our video programs, our webinars, those are all very popular. And that's an audience that 20 years ago, they were just reading a magazine.
Right. Or maybe you'd send a VHS cassette with some information on it.
Yeah, I used to use those.
So as you've made this transition, print to digital, and not not a swap. You're very clear that you're running them in parallel. But then
Yeah, we
the
have our
digital,
three magazines.
well, and I'm sure we both go into companies frequently where we see in the lobby on that table between a couple chairs or on the corner of the desk in the president's office, there's a stack of magazines. People like having that print content.
Yeah, and I remember going to the doctor and I would read Reader's Digest. I loved it. I think it's gone, or maybe it's digital or small. I don't know.
Right.
But that's what happens.
So this transition, did print, digital, and then more audio and video content has obviously been in response to the new tools that made it available and the audience demand. What lessons have you learned along the way? How would you have done it differently if somebody's just starting to make the transition to digital and audio and video? What would you recommend?
Good question. So I've always done video, going back 15 years probably. I would take my camera to a trade show and I'd record interviews. I'd find someone like you, put the camera up and we'd do a video, but it was very sporadic. We'd do a couple at a trade show, go home, edit them, and then publish them. But now it was really March of 2020 when COVID hit that I focused on video. We're at home. People want content, and there's a Zoom platform now that we're learning. And so it was a focus I had at that point. And I started my first videos, Ed, so bad. So bad. I'm embarrassed to watch them, but it was a start.
Yeah, but you started. That's the point.
It was a start. So from then on, I just started to do more and more, and I don't think I'm good at it, but I enjoy it. And we get a lot of views of our videos, so that's important. But your question is, what would I tell someone starting? There is so much out there. So everyone has a podcast. Everyone has a video program. I would say focus on a specialty. Focus on an angle that you're really good at, that you can promote, and you're going to have a smaller audience, but it'll grow from there. Just to create a podcast or a video program and just to put it out there, you're competing against a lot of people.
Right.
I'm fortunate. I have the power of ISSA behind me. So when I do a video, we have a big audience to watch it. And so our views are significant for all of our brands. I've got an advantage with that. But if I were to start over, I would focus on some specialty, something that's very interesting. And I would not do too much. I would take it slow, do it right, do it good, maybe get some training, be guests on other people's programs as well to learn.
Mm-hmm.
But I tell you, Ed, with all the noise out there, it's tough to start.
But I think you're also selling yourself short, Jeff, because not only do you have the power of ISSA behind you, but you've got another secret weapon. And that secret weapon is that you don't spend your time talking about ISSA. You spend your time talking about the issues that matter to your audience. And that feels to me like the biggest impediment in the industrial manufacturing space, because people are accustomed to talking about the machines they build, the products they make, that kind of thing. And, nobody wants to listen to that. They want to listen to solutions to the problems that they have.
Yeah, so true. We do promote ISSA. We do have our promotions, we have our marketing team. And here's the thing, Ed, and you know this, every time I do something like we're doing here today, I'm recognized as ISSA. That's the value. So when you do a video and you talk about a topic, maybe I did one yesterday on standard operating procedures with a consultant. The value is people need that content. They need to know what to do with that information,
right?
And who's bringing it to you. And that's really a business building principle.
Right.
Anyone in business that can be a consultant is going to reap the rewards of that. I think that's the key.
And there's no reason a brand can't do that same thing. It doesn't have to be an individual or person. Now, you must have a really good workflow for what I call multi-purposing content, where you've got something in video and then you've got it in print. You may use different terms. How do you describe that, and what's your workflow like to extract all of these different atoms, if you will, from one piece of content that you create?
Mm-hmm. So it used to be you would have a piece of content and it was just that. It was that piece. Now what we do, just for example, we do a recording, you and me, Ed. I record you. We had to talk about something, and you're very good at what you do. I'll take that piece of content and I'll put it into an article on the website. And I believe I've taken one of those and I've created a print article out of it as well. And then there's some social media posts you can do with it. So it used to be you would do like a print article, but now I'll do a video. I'll take the transcript of the video, create the article, put the video inside the article. People can either read it or they can watch it or they can do both. And then, of course, there's the social media part of it as well. So it's pretty simple. Yeah, you take your content and you figure out where can I use it and what else can I make this into, and it works. So
you make it sound simple, but I watch a lot of people that do parts of what you do that haven't figured out how to put it all together yet. That's part of what I've got such great admiration for, is that you've built this machine that does that. I think many of the people listening probably understand that creating content for their target market is important, but it's really hard to get going. And then once they get going, it's probably even harder to maintain it on an ongoing basis. You've touched on kind of some of the background that led you into this, but for somebody who wasn't trained as a journalist and doesn't have that pumping through their blood every day, what advice would you have about how to start and then particularly how to maintain an effort?
So it's about personality. If you have an interest in something, if you want to do something, it doesn't matter if you have the training. What matters is, what do you want to do? Do you want to promote a company or a brand or create something that's a media brand or a media product? Just do it. Just have the passion for it.
Well,
have the right motive.
Let me interrupt you, and I apologize, I haven't asked you the question, but let's say it differently. Should somebody want to create a publishing brand, let's say they're a middle market industrial manufacturer, they build machines, and the idea of running a publishing operation probably is anathema. So tell me first, should they want to run a publishing operation, and then answer the rest of the question?
Okay. So they should want to do content marketing. I'll say that.
Okay.
That should be their focus. And I don't know that industry. I don't know who they're going to talk to, but content marketing is the best way to promote your brand, to provide solutions to pain points. So if you know your industry, you know what the pain points are, what can you put together to help with that? Now, your question about a publishing company or organization, that's a challenge. And that's tough, because if you're going to succeed in publishing, you're going to have to sell advertising or sell subscriptions. Now, if you're a manufacturer and you're going to publish something, you probably have the money behind it to just do it. Now
it's called your marketing budget.
Yeah, it's your marketing. That's what you're talking about. But the marketing should be content marketing. You have your traditional, we're the best and this is why you should use this, blah, blah, blah. But what are the big challenges? If you know your industry, you can probably on a board write all the different things that are going on that are problems. And then you think, well, what can we do to solve those? Well, let's create a podcast program or a video program. And we'll take each problem and we'll pose it, and we'll get someone to answer and solve that, but not sell a product.
All right. So this is a really interesting point, because let's explore this from your perspective at ISSA. ISSA's job is to promote cleanliness and health and all of that, and to promote membership within the organization. But you've got content in your print and digital and video properties that talk about all kinds of things beyond that. When I come and chat with you, we're talking about sales, we're talking about marketing. Often, an industrial manufacturer hesitates at that point where they say, no, we don't know about that stuff. That's not our expertise. We know this machine, we know how to make it, we know how to install it, we know how to tweak it and fine tune it and all of that, but we don't know anything outside of that. So give us some advice from your perspective on how you can publish content that's important to your audience, but not your core expertise.
So a journalist's job is to do what, Ed?
I would say, well, you're going to embarrass me. You know the answer, I'm guessing, but I would say it's probably to research, to interview, to codify ideas into some sort of an article.
Yeah, exactly. And if you want to make it simpler, it's just to ask questions.
Okay. So it's a salesperson.
So think of Larry King as the famous TV interviewer. He just asked questions. He would listen to people and he would ask questions. I would say that if So let's say I own a industrial manufacturing plant and I've got some money for this. Hire someone who could be a host of a program. If that's what you want to do, hire someone to be a face of voice who's interested in what's going to happen. Because if you're interested in a topic, you're going to ask questions and you're going to draw out that information. So I'm confident that I could probably get into your world and work for a manufacturing company, and I could probably create a product, and I would create a network. I would ask you, Ed, who knows about this? Who can I get on my program? And I would get them on the program, and I would ask questions because I am ignorant, right? Not dumb, ignorant. Right. I don't know.
Right.
So, and when you don't know something, you can draw that out. And if you ask a dumb question and you get called out on it, oh, well, that's okay.
All right. So kind of the core of what you're proposing is that if you solicit outside expertise, opinions, interviews, whatever, and you present it as outside expertise and do a good job putting it into a format that answers the audience's question, then they're not going to say, wait a minute, that's not what you do. They're going to say, wait a minute, that's helpful. That helps me understand. So if I work with these companies that build machines that go into food factories, in a food factory, they're worried about cleaning. They're worried about payroll management. They're worried about track and trace. They're worried about all kinds of stuff that my clients don't know about, but my clients could certainly attract industry experts, tap their expertise, have them as guest authors, interview them and codify that into an article, have recordings in the interviews. I think that's what you're saying, right?
I am. And it could be simple or complex. You think about what you just said there, food service or a factory. What are the 5 main concerns that a facility manager has when he gets up in the morning, when he's going to go to work? Mm-hmm. What are those? If I walked through one of those factories, Ed, I would probably come up with a million questions about stuff.
Right.
And there's so much out there you can talk about. You think about LinkedIn and all those groups out there. You just start listening to the conversations, watching what people are saying. That will give you your ideas of the pain points and the solutions that you could bring. So think of it as a facilitator. You could be a journalist, you could be a publisher, but really you're going to facilitate getting information from here to help those that need it.
On the topic of LinkedIn, do you find LinkedIn groups still have value? I find that they're so hyper promotional that, if every 10th post is something substantive, I'm surprised. Do you find value in it?
So the ISSA group, we have some 48,000 members, and a lot of those, well, obviously with 10,500 member companies of ISSA, most of those in that group are not our members, but anyone with something to sell is looking for a group to sell it in.
Right.
And so every morning I get up, the first thing I do, coffee, feed the cats, and then I zap posts off of LinkedIn.
So you're doing serious moderation.
Yeah. It takes a few minutes, but I just go through and leave the good ones.
Right.
If someone has something to share and they're tied to a company, if it's helpful, then I'll leave it.
Mm-hmm.
But no, you're right. There's LinkedIn's become almost a shotgun approach. When you think about posts. So whenever you and I do a video, I'll put the video out there. I'll tag you. You're looking to get a qualified audience to watch that. So maybe 1,000 people see it, but 50 are the important people you want to see it.
Right.
That's a win. That's a win.
Yeah, I think incremental wins. People think of this silver bullet, or every once in a while, I hear a video marketing person talk about how somebody came to them and said, "I need you to create me a viral video." Well, it just doesn't work that way. But if you get consistently, it could be five good listeners or readers, maybe what you need.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So you obviously have a lot of folks bring ideas to you, and you've cultivated that kind of that cadre of contributors that you rely on. But you must also go certain places yourself. You must have YouTube channels you go to, or blogs you read, or podcasts you listen to find information about your craft, this content creation craft. What do you find valuable?
So for my trade as a journalist.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So every morning I try to go out and I go around the neighborhood. I listen to podcasts, and I listen to, could be talk shows, could be traditional podcasts. but I'm always listening for an angle, something I can learn, an interview style. I pay attention to that. I think about what do the audiences like? What are they resonating with? And the thing is, we're all consumers, right? I don't care if you're a entrepreneur, you're a high level executive, you're still a consumer. You're a person that gets up every morning, has coffee, and goes about your business.
Right.
So look at it that way. So I listen and I watch and I see things happening on social media. I see others that do things much better than I do. I think instead of disliking that or feeling, threatened by it, I learn from it.
Mm-hmm.
What they're doing, I could hone my skill and do better with what I do. So basically that's it. You just look at what's going on around you, learn, become better every day. And like I said, those first videos I did were so bad, but the videos I'm doing right now, in 5 years, I'll look back and probably say they were so bad. It's a process.
If you're not looking back in a year and saying, geez, I'm kind of embarrassed by it, then you're not growing fast enough. Right. That's for sure. So, all right, here's it's not a pet peeve. That's not the right word, but a very particular question I like to ask people. If they listen to podcasts, what speed do you listen at?
What speed?
Yes.
Just the normal speed.
Yeah.
I think I've heard if you speed it up a bit. Go ahead.
No, I'm just fascinated because I listen typically at about 1.5, and it drives people around me absolutely nuts. And they say, how can you concentrate? I'm like, how can you sit there and listen? I mean, I can understand everything they're saying, and I can get so much more information by listening quickly.
Oh, okay. I've heard that. I don't know if I've heard that from you, but I've heard that concept before, but I've never tried it. So I can't say, no, I just turn it on and listen to it. Regular speed, Ed.
I do it with YouTube too. I love the faster speed. I was listening. I'll tell you a funny story. I do it with audiobooks as well. And so I got an audiobook of, I think it was the Iliad or something like that, and didn't realize I hadn't changed the speed. And so a poem at 1.5 speed doesn't quite work the way it would at normal speed.
The cadence is off.
Exactly. So it doesn't work all the time. All right. From the ISSA perspective, I know you said you're not in management, or not in membership rather, but thinking about industrial organizations and how they can optimize their relationship and engagement with industry trade associations, what advice would you have in that regard?
To engage with them, there's events, there's opportunities at trade shows, there's opportunities to network. Without knowing exactly how industrial operations work, it's kind of a tough question. But
as a leader in a B2B trade association that runs a big trade show and a number of other events, let me say it differently. It's easy for companies to sign up and have a membership and just kind of observe. And on the other end of the spectrum are a few companies and a few people who are always joining the boards of the trade associations and really deeply and consistently and integrally involved in them. But there's a big space in the middle. And so for a company that says, hey, we don't have a ton of time to put into it, but we want to support our industry and we want to get the maximum value from this association membership, any tips in that way?
So with ISSA, we have many divisions and departments. We have charities, which supports. We have scholarships. We have a program that's really cool called Cleaning for a Reason, where anyone who has cancer can get free house cleanings.
Well,
what a great thing that is. We have all these different programs like that will provide. It's just a good feeling to be involved in that. We're a big driver behind sustainability. We have a whole committee on that, a couple of hundred members that are involved in that. It's a big push of ours. I think that's something that everyone's interested in. It seems like every organization has some sustainability department or person. So that would be something we'd have in common. The trade show, the ISSA trade show, is a great resource for these large manufacturers to come to get solutions to what they need. We have the big cleaning companies, the suppliers, the distributors who can provide solutions to them. So as far as what you're talking about, doing business together, that would be an easy one. But there's a lot of social corporate responsibility programs that we're involved in that crosses borders easily. So I think that would be, higher level thinking where, what can we do with sustainability, with DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. That's a big part of what we do at ISSA as well.
Got it. I know you're not immediately involved in the trade show group at ISSA, but you do obviously go to all the shows and you get to observe what's going on. As shows change and buyer behaviors and buyer expectations change, what have you seen as you walk the aisle and interview and talk to people that some companies are doing that really makes their show more effective than others that maybe just do it in a more passive, traditional way?
Mm-hmm. Engagement, I would say. Those exhibitors who are doing activities to engage, to be personable to those that are coming to their booth, who they want to come to their booth, they win. Education. I've seen many exhibitors do their own education pieces as part of their booth, as part of their representation at the show. Mm-hmm. That adds a lot of value. Standing there like this at your booth, hoping someone stops by.
Or even worse, in the back of the booth on your phone.
Yeah, exactly. But just be engaging and be a person. Just stand out front and talk to people. Be interested in them.
Right.
I would say anyone that's manning a booth or who's representing a brand at a booth or at a trade show, go with the idea of networking, learning about people, be interested in them, talk to them, and figure out what you can do for them and maybe what they can do for you. So it's about relationships.
Good advice. Thinking now about your recommendation that a company that kind of wants to start in content marketing might go and hire a journalist. Do you have any rule of thumb based on the current market of what sort of an expenditure or investment that represents?
I really don't. If you're going to hire someone, whatever the prevailing wage is, but you can hire a company to do this for you. Mm-hmm. I would say if you find the right fit, the right personality, that's going to be an employee, right? It's going to be someone who's you're going to onboard, pay them well, but you need that personality. That's the key.
Right.
As far as the expense, it's hard to tell. It's, like what would that cost a company? Be real tough to come up with that number, but it won't be low. You're looking for some skill.
I'm a huge advocate, and I've recommended this to many clients, that when they struggle with this, that what they do is find, I've called it, and forgive me if it's impolite, but a starving journalist. Somebody who had that idealism, decided they were going to work for that local paper, realized that they couldn't pay the bills, particularly as rent and groceries and everything are so expensive, and needs to kind of sell out to the man. They need to find a commercial outlet for that creativity. And I think it's a great opportunity for them to build a relationship if there's a good cultural fit with the company.
I agree with you and I disagree with you at the same time because you find that starving journalist like I was. Well, I found what I wanted to do to solve my problem.
Right.
But if I were to take a job in a factory, so to say, that I didn't enjoy, it would get me out of the problem, but I wouldn't stay with it. Mm-hmm. So it just depends on the drive of the person. You find that starving journalist, you bring him on board. That person needs to be interested in what they're going to do. Sure, you're giving them a living, you're giving them the money they need to survive, but that's not enough.
Right.
I've always said that, making money is the easy part when you think about it, because you can always do something to make money. Might be less than what you want, but, you can always figure it out.
Sure.
It's finding what you want to do that you love that will also provide you with the financial drive that you need as well. So I think you're right and you're wrong at the same time.
Yeah, I guess then
the right person, it works.
And the key is to give them the journalistic latitude, I guess,
exactly,
to exercise their creative drive around what the company's doing. And maybe it's opening up other channels of content into neighborhood issues and how the company is a great member of the community, in addition to talking about how it solves problems in the factories it sells to.
Yeah. And you do that by finding that person and asking them what they want, show them what you do and say, do you think there's a fit here?
Right.
Have that conversation. Don't be like, how much money do you need per hour or per year, whatever? And that's not the solution. That's the short-term solution.
Right.
But if you really want to make a difference, if you want to find someone who's going to stay with you, and that's not the problem. You find someone good, you train them, and they're always looking for the next adventure. You want to be that last adventure,
right,
for that person.
Now, I've gotten emails and seen LinkedIn posts from you very early in the morning and sometimes on weekends. So you've got, I think, an interesting workflow. You manage all of these properties, all of these publishing entities. Number one, does that leave any time for Jeff to do anything besides work? Mm-hmm. And number two, what have you found is really effective in this content creation role in terms of a daily and weekly workflow?
So I live by the calendar, the schedule. So I have my Outlook right here. It tells me what I'm doing. An example is that if you and I do a video, once we're done with our video, I'm going to dump that recording into my Final Cut Pro, and I'm going to render it and publish it. I'm not going to let it sit and stack up and let things happen. I'm a get it off my desk kind of person. I like to golf. We do travel. My wife and I are going to Barbados next week.
Oh, nice.
So it's not like I don't have downtime, but I also enjoy what I do. So as we might be sitting in the living room watching some TV show, I might check LinkedIn and do some kind of a post. So maybe it's a little bit too much for your average person, but my work is also kind of my hobby.
And And do you have certain days set aside for certain kinds of work, writing on Tuesday and video on Wednesday? How do you break it up at all like that?
So I do block off time for projects. I wouldn't say there's a day, but like if I look at 2 weeks from now and there's a Tuesday that's somewhat open, I know in 2 weeks, I think you and I have a recording maybe, or in 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. I'll see I have 2 recordings. And I'll block off the rest of the time for editing for the magazine, planning, and then rendering those videos. So I try to make it so I'm doing a lot, but it's not stacked up.
Right.
It's spaced out. And you have to say no sometimes. There's times when you just have to be like, I can't do anymore. And that happens. That's the reality of life. But we're producing a lot. And it's pretty good stuff. People are watching. I get a lot of comments. I walk a trade show. People come up and they say how much they like what we're doing. That's the payoff, right? That's the what you feel good about what you do.
And how about working? I assume that your team is remote. I think you work out of your house, right?
So this is my home office. I have a separate office. Doors are shut. Cats are locked out and all that. But yeah, our team works remote. We used to be in the office. COVID hit. ISSA used to be in a larger office, and then we downsized a bit. We're right by the O'Hare Airport. Really nice office, but smaller because more people are working remotely. So I have a couple of editors in Chicago, in the Illinois area. We have a designer in Atlanta. We have an editor in Tennessee, freelancers in Tucson, and another one up in Northern Ohio. So yeah, remote, just like everyone else. Because and really you get more done that way as long as you're disciplined. That's the key. Some people can't work remotely. They're distracted. They're going to be watching TV or going to the gym. No, you need to be focused on the job. And what's nice about what we do is it's measured by what we put out. Right. It's not like punching the clock. We have deadlines to meet. We have content to produce, and you can see it when it's done. And if it's not there, where is it? And
how tightly do you start? Do you have a content brief for everything you work on? Or do you say, hey, this is generally what we want to talk about. Give me an outline and we'll see if we're on the right track.
So we create a brand planner for every issue we do, mm-hmm. which is a synopsis of every article we want to include based on our editorial calendar and what we see in the industry. So that's it. That's basically it. We do a little synopsis. We promote it to the industry, and then we'll work with whoever is writing it, or we write it ourselves to put it together. Journalism is kind of like the Wild West. There's no, it has to be this way.
You're going to scare people away here. We're trying to make them comfortable with journalism.
Well, you can be comfortable, but realize it's not completely structured because you're dealing with people, and different people write different ways. You have deadlines to deal with and all that. So kind of forget your question, but it's a process. You have a schedule. And I like to think one of our editors years ago said, deadlines are our friend. I'm like, what? Yeah, deadlines are our friend. And I'm like, that's true. Because if you have a deadline and you live by it, you're going to get the work done. Then you're going to move on to the next project.
Right.
So there are times when when I work on a print magazine where I'll say I have to do an article every 2 days. I have to do it from start to finish, production. Every 2 days, we have to have one product done. With what we're doing now with the videos and webinars and newsletters, magazines and all, it's not so much that way like it used to be. But if you have a structure, if you have a schedule, and you have a deadline, you're going to be happy because you'll live within those confines.
But I'm hearing a very strong thread of accountability as well. So it's not wearing a beret and smoking a Gauloise and being creative and kind of writing something when it strikes you. It's we're going to be disciplined and we're going to do this because this is what we need to do and hold each other accountable. So
my entire journalism career has been all about that. Back when I worked for the newspaper, every day, I'm trying to think, it was a morning newspaper. So it had to go to print like at midnight. We printed right there. We had our own printing press and all that. Huge operation in the back of the building. But every day you had to have it done. Mm-hmm. So I remember Sunday editions. We had a big Sunday sports section. I worked on that. By midnight Saturday, you had to have all your high school scores. You had to have all this stuff together. And it seems overwhelming when you think about it. All this stuff has to come together at that moment to go to print. But it works because you have a system.
I often say to people, you're struggling to get your blog published every week. Does anybody ever say, well, we don't know if we can get around to doing payroll this week? Of course not. I mean, that's just what you do. Why is content different?
I think because content isn't I don't know about payroll, like I'm not an accountant, but I have to think that there's probably a cadence to it that's the same every time. In journalism, it can be somewhat that way, but you're dealing with different people, different topics. It's just an expanded version of that.
Right.
But I'm used to it. So I think if someone's getting into this, realize there's going to be a learning curve. There's going to be some pain points. But once you get into your cadence and you understand what you're doing, then it's going to be okay. But we do a lot. We do so much that you really can't compare someone who's starting out with a small, maybe they want to do a blog or a video. Mm-hmm. That's manageable. Don't think about the quantity, think about the quality. Start small. If I were to do like one video program a week, I would do 3 days of planning and really make the best of it. And then I would do that recording. Well, I do like 1 or 2 a day. So that's journalism.
Right.
That's responding to the needs of the market.
Right.
But if you're a manufacturer who's going to be creating content to solve pain points for your clients or potential clients, you can put more thought into that and really craft something. And I see that with manufacturers in our industry. I see some of our member companies creating really great content, tips. And yeah, they're using their products. It's somewhat promotional, but it's good stuff. Mm-hmm. And that's what they're doing. They're focused on that particular podcast or blog or whatever that might be.
So a lot of people now are thinking that maybe the answer to make this whole content thing easier is here in the form of AI. And we can't talk about content without talking about mm-hmm. AI. And you and I have talked about this in the past. I know you're watching it, I think, from 2 angles. One, how you can use it appropriately in your content creation, obviously disclosing wherever it is and using it in substantive and helpful ways. And second, how to avoid falling prey to AI-generated content that people are feeding you. Tell me mm-hmm. more about your impressions and your thoughts about AI.
So AI is, it's been around a while, but it's kind of new in a way because of what it's done, according to what it can do now. I'd say I was a little concerned about it at the beginning, but not so much now. I play with it quite a bit. I do prompts for generated AI, text, images, video, and all that. But I use it to help with the creative part of things. So maybe I want to know, what's a better way to say this, or give me 10 things that are about this. and I'll use that for ideas. But I've stayed away from publishing anything where I say, write an article on this and, oh, that looks good, publish. We also, when someone submits an article, we will check it to make sure it's not AI generated. I think AI right now has more of a place in marketing. If a true journalist were to use AI to create content, well, then my value is no longer there, because anyone who's reading that could do the same prompt and ask the same question and get somewhat the same information. So I don't know, Ed. I see a challenge coming, but I see you might say, as some say, come to Jesus moment. When it comes to AI, you got to figure out what you're going to do. And I've heard of some publishing AI content and marketing it as that. So there's no hidden agenda. People know where it came from. I guess that's okay. It's just like anyone can do that. So, but as far as design, I know our designers have used AI to craft some imagery. And I've done some of that as well, but I'm no designer. But I think you just have to be real careful with what you do with it. AI generated animation, you look on social media and you see these people or these things happening. Those could be AI generated. I think there's going to be a big amount of pessimism coming from content consumers when it comes to AI. There's going to have to be a way where people know it's authentic.
Right.
Yeah. And I think that's the key. I think if I was a journalist getting into this now, I'd be more comfortable with this format than just the written word. Like if AI was around when I started and it was all about print, I'd probably be concerned as a journalist about that.
Sure.
But, nowadays it's more about blogs or podcasts and video, to where you have to be real to make that happen. At least that's what I think.
Right. It's interesting. I believe that one of the biggest opportunities is for sales teams, because if the core of successful outbound prospecting is to really understand who you're speaking to personally, their company, their industry, to be able to target and personalize, not just email tokens, but really personalize the substance of your outreach. That takes research. And if you do all that in a very iterative way, go to Google, do a query, find a result, open it up, read it, take some notes, then repeat that, then you've got a very long process trying to crawl through a company's website and understand the information from their earnings reports, and all that kind of stuff will take a long time. It's very inefficient for salespeople, but it's critically important. I think what people don't understand is that AI search is not like Google search. You can, instead of having to take those iterative steps, it's almost like you get a research assistant. You say, here's what I want from you by noon. Please go work on it and bring it back to me, with a digest or a recap of all the important information. That, I think, is a huge and exciting opportunity.
Sure. Now I'm coming at this from a content generating position.
Right.
But you're right. I've played with that as well. I've taken a chat GPT bot or whatever, one of those. They have many in there. I mean, you look at what is available, and I've had it go to a website and write a report on what's there. And it's a great research tool. You're right, Ed, for sales, for marketing, for research, for taking something and creating notes out of it. Fantastic tool.
Right.
So there is a place for AI. I'm just saying, in our conversation here.
Yeah, in terms of content, I think you've got great advice.
Yeah, I would say we're going to be slow to figure it out, but I am very cautious with it. But I use it because it's a great tool for support of what we do.
Do you ever have any of your members come to you and say, Jeff, we love your content. Can you advise us on how we can set up content creation in our company?
So interesting. No.
What a missed opportunity. You're a tremendous resource.
No, it's I can't think of that as a conversation. Now I have talked to people about what they do, and we've shared ideas back and forth. So I think there's been some of that, but no one has come to me and asked about setting something up from scratch, or like you're talking about there. Yeah.
Well,
to be honest,
could be something to add to the training programs and certifications that you all offer.
Many of our members already do some kind of content publishing. I mean, that's a smart way of marketing.
Right.
So they do that as well. So I see a lot of good out there with what they're doing.
All right, kind of zooming out a little bit, looking at the business world right now, what makes you most nervous and what has you most excited?
I would say the most nervous would be consolidation in our industry. And it's probably across the board with other industries. So many companies, and it's not a bad thing. It's business, right? They're merging. One company buys another company. It just means a smaller playing field for us to work with when it comes to content. Most exciting part, I would say, is just what we're doing now with all the videos and the people watching and the engagement. I love engagement. It's really cool to see that happen. So it's exciting. It's what we're doing is exciting. I wouldn't say I'm in business like others are. I work for ISSA as a journalist. So it's not like I'm in business to make sales and all that, but I guess we're all in sales in a way. My sales manager always tells me that we're all in sales.
For sure, we are. Of course, the corollary to that is engagement is great. I mean, it's affirming, it's exciting, but we also have to figure out how to translate engagement into revenue as well.
Yes, yeah, and that's the conversation we have all the time, because at ISSA, we have different departments and divisions, but with the media team, we have a sales team that works with what we create. So it's a constant conversation because people are watching. Well, someone should be partnering that message with the content.
Right.
So it's a conversation.
Well, speaking of conversations, this has been great, Jeff. I'm sure there's people listening to this who now are saying, I got to figure out how to follow this guy, how to learn from him, how to just absorb some of this wisdom watching you create content. So what do you recommend for people that want to watch you and follow you? How do they do so? How do they connect with you? Where do they find you?
Easiest way to see everything that we do at ISSA is to go to issa.com/media. That's the portal to all of our brands, everything that we do. So you start there, you can get to our videos, our webcasts, our magazines, and all that. issa.com/media.
How about LinkedIn? Are you open to connections there?
Sure. Yep.
Okay. All right.
LinkedIn, Jeff Cross. Yep. It's me and a football player with the same name.
I'll drop a link to your profile in the show notes.
Yeah, it's great to meet people and network with them, and I'm here to help. Anyone has questions, reach out. Like everyone else, get a lot of spam here and there, but if someone wants to reach out, be specific about what you're looking for, and happy to help anyone who wants it.
So let's wrap up then, and let's kind of try to put into a really concise statement at the end of this for any B2B business owner who's thinking about the possibility of adding a publishing function, call it content marketing, call it publishing, in their company. What meta level advice do you have for them about when and how and why to do that?
Okay. I would think about the platform you want to create. Is it a podcast? Is it a video? Like with us, we do video, which becomes a podcast as well. Figure out the platform you want to do. Or is it a newsletter? Is it something printed? Figure out the platform. Find the right personality for that. Find the right person who wants to do it, that's engaging and interesting and funny. People want funny, right? They want to have a good time. Find the right personality, the right person, and give them the latitude, let go of the rein and let them run with it, but give them the support, give them the money, the budget they need to do it. So like I said before, if I came on with any organization and I had the latitude to do it, I would figure it out. You need to find a person that will do that.
Right.
They're not always out there, but that young journalist type that wants to reach the market, who wants to take a message and craft something cool that gets the engagement, that's who you want.
So an editorial guide or a style guide and an editorial calendar won't get it done by itself. You have to have that passionate person to drive it.
That's it. It's all about the person. It's about the people.
Perfect. This has been wonderful, Jeff. You've been generous with your time. I know you've got 3 projects, I'm sure, in your desk that you have to take care of, but thanks for joining. Thanks for chatting. Thanks for sharing your insights.
Pleasure, Ed. I'll see you on the next recording.
All right. Sounds good. I'll look forward to it. And please, everyone who's listening, don't forget to, the drill, like it, share it, hit the button, comment, and certainly subscribe. Look forward to having you back for future episodes.